Good morning, Smoochie Boss. You're welcome on board. Other people will join us along as we start. All right, so without taking time, we need to get started. Good morning, Mr. Akman. Good morning, Mr. Wasiu Shobande, and every other person on the platform. Now, today is the 4th of May, 2020. Morning, Madam Onaji. Good morning, Ayomikun. Today is the 4th of May, 2026. Now, as usual, we'll run through the fundamentals, then we'll go through the technicals. Now, in line with the fundamentals, today we don't have any tradable fundamental. There's bank holiday in Japan, bank holiday in the United Kingdom, and 8:30 p.m. Bank of Canada Gordon Macklin will give a speech. So technically, we don't have any fundamental tradable fundamental event today. The market will run more technical, but then there's also a clause to that. It means we may also experience some irregular movements, spikes, or ranges in the market. So we're expected to trade with a lot of caution. Now, what I will do at this session is to just give us an overview of important fundamental events that could drive the markets in the course of the week. So tomorrow, Tuesday, there'll be cash rate from Australia. That's Australia's version of interest rate. RBA monetary policy statement and RBA statement all will come up by 5:30 a.m. And finally, RBA press conference by 6:30 a.m. So we expect a lot of volatility on the Australian dollar tomorrow morning, very early tomorrow morning. This always moves the market. So take note of this. You can wake up early to trade this particular news event. And 7 a.m. tomorrow also, sorry, 7:30, there'll be CPI from Switzerland. This is also a very key event. And other important events for Wednesday will be the ISM Southeast PMI, jobs, job opening, new home sales, Fed data, all from the United States by 3 p.m. So volatility is expected on the US dollar by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, and that could move the market. And later on Wednesday, also for those who might be who are swing traders, there'll be employment change and unemployment rate from New Zealand. That's New Zealand version of NFP. Will hold Wednesday night by 11 45 p.m. So you're seeing trader, you have a running trade, or you want to trade that news, just take note of the time. And pardon me, did I say Wednesday? That should be for Tuesday. All that is for Tuesday, pardon me. And on Wednesday, all we have on Wednesday will just be medium impact news event. Japanese yen will still experience all day bank holiday, just like today. But then, except for the ADP non-farm employment change, other events may not really move the market. ADP non-farm employment change can move the market despite the fact that it's a medium impact event, and that'll come up on Wednesday by 1:15 p.m. Let's take note of that. And on Thursday, unemployment claims is medium impact. It could also move the market despite the fact it's a medium impact event. And that's even the only tradable event on Thursday by 1:30 p.m. Let's take note of that also. That's from the United States. And finally, on Friday, we have the big one, the NFP, the average hourly earning, non-farm employment change, and unemployment rate. This is the biggest news event in the forex market. Though it's going to run simultaneously with Canada's employment change and unemployment rate, but we don't always focus on the CAD. Our focus is usually on the US dollar. And I announced this last week that NFP is coming up this Friday. Plan to attend. Join us live. We trade live. We make money. Money to the bank. So don't miss it on this Friday. All right. With that being said, let me just go straight to the charts. Let's see what the market has in stock for today and the better part of this week from a technical perspective. Though global events also could uh, push the price, in the direction of all of the market. All right. As usual, we start with the dollar index. That's the USDX. Just a second. All right, so this is the dollar index on the daily time frame, pardon me. On the daily time frame, the price closed last week in an uptrend with a rejection candle, support zone. And that is an indication of a possible bullish movement on the US dollar. And aside that, there was a news I saw on Friday, no, on Saturday or so, but I didn't see any corresponding confirmation in most platforms about the United States. Trump announces end to Iran hostilities, signals potential military move against Cuba. Well, the important part is that they said Trump announces end to Iran hostilities, but I don't know. I didn't see it in major headlines, but I saw it on a particular site. So let's assume that is true. That can also be a fundamental we might take note of this morning because that's also could lead to some strength in the US dollar, because America has been spending a lot on the war, even though they're trying to form as if it's not shaking them. I always say nobody really wins in a war at the end of the day. Both the winner and the loser, everybody lost something. That's always what happens. So if US is going to be putting an end to the war, we'll still check out for other news outlets to confirm it, but let's just take it for now. That could lead to some strength in the US dollar. And with the fact that price overall is in an uptrend with a rejection candle at a support zone, technically, we should see some strength on the US dollar this week. And with that being said, if we look at an instrument like the USDCHF, we see that USDCHF is also in an uptrend, just like what we found on the dollar index. This is the USDCHF on the daily time frame. You can see the last candle, daily candle was a rejection candle. Today is already forming another rejection candle, you know, and is at the support zone. Two rejection candles on the support zone with an overall bullish trend. Price making a series of higher lows, and higher lows, higher lows. So technically, just like we saw on the dollar index, will be very bullish on the dollar for today and the better part of this week. But then what is important is to look also for entry opportunities. And that's why I've flipped over to a lower time frame like 1 hour. Now, on the 1 hour time frame, I can clearly see the formation of this should be an inverse head and shoulder, but there was a major spike here. So, but notwithstanding, we'll still take note of a possible retracement. And what is most important is a breakout to the upside while we have a neckline region around here. So in the course of today, we're going to be waiting for price to break out above that trend line, around this region with our RSI clearly above 50 and MACD above zero as confirmation before we trigger a buy on the USDCHF. And price is projected to break out. Let me use the Fibonacci tool to confirm that. All right, so if we're looking for price breakout, now I want you to know this is an hypothetical figure. I'm not saying exactly that spot. It can be before it or a little above it. But using our entry position around 0.78191, we can look at taking profits around Fibonacci 50 and Fibonacci 61.8. And that can give us roughly some, just a second, some 27 pips and about 44 pips in profit. So we're bullish on the USDCHF today. This is an intraday setup. It's 1 hour. So it's expected to trigger in the course of today. We are very bullish on the dollar. So we are bullish. We're bullish on the dollar. And similarly on the USD card, can imagine both of them they have the dollar as the base currency. We have similar setup on, or let me say direction on the USD card. For the USD card, we have a valid support zone. Again, the candle that closed last Friday closed as a rejection candle. So technically, we'll be looking at an upside movement, just like what we saw on the dollar index. So we go down to the 1 hour time frame. And normally what we're expecting also should be an inverse head and shoulder, though it's not looking so sharp. But notwithstanding, I still strongly believe price will break out to the upside. So I'm having a bullish expectation on the USD card just like I have it on the USD And using my Fibonacci tool, price already moved a little above Fibonacci 23.6. And normally our neckline should be somewhere around here. So if price breaks out above that level, then we'll see price at least target the first profit level at Fibonacci 38.2 and can make its way up to Fibonacci 50. And at those 2 points, we should expect price to move to the tune of about 17 p to Fibonacci 38 point. Sorry, yeah, Fibonacci 38.2 at about 17 pips, Fibonacci 50 at around 35 pips, and it may still make its way to Fibonacci 7.8 at about 54 pips. But by and large, we're bullish on both the USD CAD and the USD CHF. All right, so that's it for the major dollar pairs. Then the third one I'll show us this morning is the AUD CHF. All right, so we'll be looking at the AUD CHF. That's the third instrument I'm looking at. Now, on the weekly time frame, price closed as a rejection candle last week. Technically, that can signal a potential reversal, but that's if we have corresponding resistance and probably a trend line, around that axis. I'm trying to see if there's a but from a psychological level, but there's none, so it's not a problem. All right, so what I can see here is a trend line that's descending to that region. And previously on the weekly time frame, price had also reacted to this level. Price had reacted with a bounce on touching this level way back 2023, three times, four times consecutively. There's been even right here, there's been a reaction. So technically, we should be looking for a further bearish movement. But that's on the weekly. Let's go down to the daily. Okay, I think I didn't show you something on the weekly also. Like here, we have a descending trend line here and right there. So these are confluence point from where we expect a reversal to the downside to occur. So what I'm doing is called top-down analysis. With top-down analysis, we're looking at direction on a higher time frame, then looking at possible entry on a lower time frame. Now, on the daily time frame, we can see that we had a bearish engulfing candlestick that formed last week. That is also an indication of a potential reversal to the bearish direction. So we come down to 4 hour, and from there we can look for possible entries. On the 4 hour time frame, we have a rising wedge, and I'm seeing the formation of a head and shoulder pattern. I didn't draw that well. Shoulder, head, second shoulder. A retest of that price level I said as in a reaction, then we expect a drop. Now, this is a 4 hour setup. All the setup I've been showing so far, they are all intraday, but this particular one is a swing. It's a 4 hour setup. So I'll be looking for a bearish movement on the AUDCHF in the course of this week. And entry will be normally the neckline region should be this particular axis. This should be the neckline. Um, it's going to show now. Okay, no, that's not it. All right, so that's the neckline. So once price breaks out below this rectangle, which is the neckline region, anywhere below this area, we should see a free fall movement on the AUD CHF. And projected profit on this could move as much as Fibonacci 50 at about 30, let's just say 30 pips. Fibonacci 61.8 at about 59 pips. And that's let's just say roughly 60 pips. Fibonacci 70.6 at about 96 pips. So between 30 and 96 pip movement is possible this week on the AUDCHF. This is purely swing. So if you're a swing trader, you have something to look up to right here. So we're bearish on the AUDCHF. All right, that will be all from my end this morning. Now okay, I think let me check BTC USD. Someone is actually asking, but then it's one of the instruments I am looking up to. Okay, before I talk about BTC, now, if truly US is standing down, putting an end to the war with Iran, then we could see further bearish movement on the US oil, on the crude oil this week. That's very possible. It means tension will be over and price can go back to, possibly at least reduce, even if it's not going back to the earlier level. We should see some reduction in the price of crude oil. Now, this is crude oil on the weekly time frame. Let's go down. All right. Now, the weekly time frame, monthly now, this is the monthly time frame. Price actually hit a major resistance level, to close last month. All right. So there's a major resistance level up there, a major one, right up there. And price went back to an all-time high of 2021. Yeah, price got as high as this the last time was sometime in 2021. That was some 5 years ago. Okay, 2022. That was 2022. That was some 4 years ago. Price got back to that resistance level last month. And from the look of things, it not only got to that level, if I go down to the daily time frame, yeah, I'm seeing the formation. Now that was a major resistance level, and I'm seeing the formation of a head and shoulder pattern forming here. So if truly, United States is standing down on this war with Iran, then we should be getting ready for some long-term massive drop in crude oil. Now, this is still potentially futuristic. We need to look at what could happen now. But technically, as a technical price action trader, this is what I'm seeing forming on crude oil. Just the same way it went up as high as 5,000 pips in a couple of weeks, we could still also see a major move down, in the coming weeks if the United States is ready to stand down. That means both US and Iran has been able to come to an agreement. Whether it's favorable to both parties is what we don't know, but if the decision from the United States is that they want to stand down, then we should know the tension and the hostility, will be over and price can go back to normal. Because what always leads to increase in price is war and tension, especially when it's around crude oil and Iran being a major producer and also a spot where crude oil flows to. More than 30% of crude oil all over the world passes through Iran. But if the war is over, then we should see price drop. So I'm seeing a head and shoulder form on the daily time frame, and price may just be projecting towards the neckline. But that's, like I said, futuristic. Let's look at what is possible for us in the course of this week. I'll be checking the 4 hour time frame. Just a second. All right. So this is the 4 hour. Price also hit a key level last week from where we saw a slight bearish movement. All right, so price has presently broken below the lower trend line. RSI, is actually below 50. MACD is yet to cross below zero. For me, for a further bearish breakout on the US oil, I'll be looking at this region as a resistance turn support. Just a second. Sorry, my system is not picking this. Okay, it's already picked. All right, so I'll be looking for a breakout, below this region for us to trigger a sell on the US oil. Now, if price doesn't, break out below here, we may see a retest of the trend line up here before that happens. But overall, I'm bearish on the US oil. Okay, so that's my outlook on the US oil. So I'll attend to the request we have this morning. Oluwatoba is asking me to check BTC USD. Okay, Gabriel is BTC USD. Oluwatoba is GBP USD, GBP JPY, gold. All right, let's quickly look at all those instruments. So let's start with the BTC USD. Now, the fundamentals around BTC USD is showing that there is a potential surge to the upside. And you can see there was actually a sharp movement overnight. But then price is still trading very much around a previous support turned resistance on the weekly time frame. You have a support turned resistance right here on the weekly time frame. This is the support turned resistance. So price entered that support on resistance zone, and that's what is responsible for the current retracement we are seeing. All right. So price is back to that support turn resistance zone. Now, on a technical angle, even though the fundamentals is pointing towards a bullish movement, but then let's look first at what the technical is saying, because that's what is visible at the moment. Now, technically, I'm seeing the formation of a rising wedge pattern on this BTC USD, and two things could actually happen, right here. Okay, something is getting clear. I don't want to lose sight of the fundamental analysis. I will take us to uh, possibly the site. So that's what I read this morning. Now, we'll not neglect the fact that in all of this, there is a minor resistance which could turn support here. So price might drop to this region and from then break out to the upside. That's the only way we could have price drive to the upside, in line with the fundamentals. But then from a pure technical angle, if price breaks out below this region, below this resistance or support, then we're going to see a massive breakout to the downside. So I'll take it from both ends, from the technical and the fundamental. Now, price could drop here and make its way higher, break that support ton resistance on the day on the weekly, or price breaks below this region and we see a move downwards. So at the moment, we are just at a point where we need to exercise caution and patience and see the next thing. Again, for a breakout to the upside, price must return to this resistance on support and break out from there, or price breaks that level and find its way downwards. All right, so that's my view on BTC USD. Now on GBP USD, like I said, we are bullish on the dollar. So if we're bullish on the dollar, we're bullish on the USD CHF, on the USD CAD. So an instrument like GBP USD will definitely have a bearish sentiment. Now the thing is that I'm not seeing clear setup like that on the GBP USD. But if you must trade it, you are just going with the flow that the dollar is, bullish, and as such, an instrument like a GPUSD should be bearish. I'm not seeing resistance level clearly, and other factors, but may just work with our understanding that if the dollar is bullish, then GBP will be bearish. That's all I can say about that instrument. Mr. Yekutiapan, GBP Now, last week I gave a forecast of a massive bearish movement on the JPY pairs, and we saw that happen. I posted an update on Friday for the NZD JPY, but actually that move cut across all the JPY pairs. So JPY has done its major move last week. From that drop, it all has to do with the Bank of Japan and the strength on the Japanese yen, which led to a massive bearish breakout, on all the JPY pairs, because the JPY is actually the quote currency on all these instruments. I'm trying to get the JPY. That's a massive drop on JPY last week, just in line with the weekly analysis that I gave. And there was a massive drop to a tune of about 474 pips on the GBP last week. Now, this week, purely technical now, no fundamentals attached. Now, you can see we have an overall bullish movement, purely bullish all along, price touching different higher lows, and the drop last week also touched this trend line. So there's the possibility, of a slight upside movement on GBJPY this week. Let's go down to 4-hour time frame. Um, you can see on the 4-hour, we had a rejection, two rejection candles already, you know, already here, signifying we may have a push to the upside. This is 1 hour. Let's go down to 15 minutes. So we have valid support zone here. Well, this is what could happen. We have a trend line moving downwards right there. Price could break up, drop a little and break up above here, but this should be done with a lot of caution. Otherwise, I would say ignore it. We don't have clear cut setup like that. But because you asked, that's why I'm just giving this. If price breaks out above this high, at least the next thing is to hit this resistance level. That's the closest I can give you on GPJPY. The major move that happened last week. Anything now is just you're trying to catch a small movements of just some 30, 40 pips on GBJPY. That's my outlook, purely technical on the GBJPY. All right, so that'll be all. I've attended to all the questions, BTC, GBP, USD, GPJPY, and I've attended to all. All right, so you're welcome, Mr. Akpan. So for the benefit of those who joined us late, we've analyzed the dollar this morning, and I said we are bullish on the dollar. There's a major bullish setup on the dollar index, which cut across USD CHF and the USD CAD. So expect a bullish movement on this instrument in the course of today. This is the dollar index, which is giving us a bullish bias, and USD CHF is also giving us. You can see movement, bullish movement that started on the USD CHF. I said it an inverse head and shoulder and a breakout to the upside. So we're bullish on the USD CHF, and we're likewise bullish on the USD card. Both of them intraday setup, purely 1 hour. Okay, for the USD card is going up now. Now at the close of this 1 hour candle, you can actually trigger a buy on the USD card. That's by 8 a.m. You can trigger if this candle closes as a full bullish candle by 8 a.m. You can trigger a buy on the USD card. And I said that we're bearish on the AUD CHF, but that one is a swing. It's a 4 hour setup. So that's all from my end. Collins, you are yet to respond to that. Maybe your attention got distracted. I've attended to GPUSD. There's no direct setup, but you can work on the sentiment that if the dollar is bullish, it may be bearish, but we're not having a clear-cut setup on the GBP USD. All right. Okay, so that's going to be all from my end this morning. Now, for those asking about gold, now the dollar is bullish, gold may be bearish, but then we're not having a clear-cut setup also for a sell. It's not really so clear. It may drop. Now, is a probability, but we don't have a clear-cut entry for now. So, but then it's better to work on instruments that have clear setup and just work rather than just work on probabilities and assumption. All right. So that'll be the end of the analysis this morning. The link to the video will be dropped. So if you missed a part of this analysis, you can watch it over again. Do take care and have a great day and a great week ahead. Bye-bye.